If you're over 50, this message is for you. And it's not a request, it's a plea. I'm begging you, please, stop killing your own potential. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Every day, I see a disturbing pattern. Seniors quietly slipping into mental retirement long before their bodies give up. Not physically, but emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. And it always starts with one seemingly harmless phrase. I've done my part. Let the young ones handle it now. That one habit, mentally checking out of life, is the quiet killer of growth, vitality, and purpose. You tell yourself it's time to rest, but what starts as rest becomes resignation. Days blend into weeks, weeks into years, and without even noticing, the fire dims, not because you're old, but because you've stopped feeding it. Comfort is the slowest form of decline. It's disguised as peace, but real peace comes from progress, not passivity. You didn't reach this stage of life to sit back. You came all this way to teach, to lead, to evolve into your final, most powerful version. Younger people watch you more than they listen to you. If they see you quit, shrink, or stop learning, they'll think that's what age looks like. You're not passing down wisdom. You're passing down fear disguised as rest. So what do? You move, you mentor, you learn a new skill, you read, you teach. You build something, not for the money, not for the recognition, but because you're alive. And life demands movement. Stop asking, what's left for me? Start asking, what can I still give? This one shift can wake up your body, mind, and soul. Because purpose doesn't have an age limit, it only has a pulse. There is a habit so common among seniors that most don't even recognize it as a threat. It hides behind polite language and phrases like I've earned my rest, or let the younger ones handle it now. On the surface, this sounds reasonable. After all, a lifetime of hard work should bring some peace, right? But hidden beneath those words is something dangerous: resignation, quiet surrender, a decision, often unconscious, to stop striving, to stop learning, to stop evolving. That's the habit I'm talking about, the habit of mentally checking out of life. It begins subtly. You stop seeking new challenges. You start saying no to opportunities because they feel uncomfortable. You convince yourself you've learned all there is to learn. You begin to shrink your world into what is familiar, what is easy, and what doesn't require too much energy. And this slow retreat is not about age. It's about mindset, because the spirit doesn't age like the body does. The human spirit was built to expand, to pursue meaning, to find purpose regardless of the number of candles on your birthday cake. But when the spirit is denied purpose, denied stimulation, denied movement, something inside begins to wither. This isn't about staying busy for the sake of being busy. It's about the quality of your engagement with life. A flower that stops reaching for the sun starts dying, no matter how beautiful it once was. And so it is with people. If you stop stretching, growing, striving, you're not resting, you're fading. This particular habit is so destructive because it wears the mask of wisdom. You might tell yourself, I've been through enough. I've earned my peace. That may be true, but peace and purpose are not opposites. In fact, the deepest peace often comes from knowing that you are still useful, still relevant, still learning and contributing. You don't need to run marathons or start a new career to stay alive in spirit. You simply need to remain curious, to stay involved, to ask, what else can I explore? What else can I give? The moment you believe your best days are behind you, they are. But the moment you decide you're not done yet, that's the moment the flame inside begins to burn again. This is not a condemnation, it's a call, because the world needs you. Not in the way it did when you were 30 or 40 or 50, but in the way only someone who has seen and endured as much as you have can offer. The stories, the lessons, the calm in chaos, the presence that can only come from experience. These are treasures you carry. And when you withdraw from life, those treasures remain locked inside you, untouched and untaught. We often talk about the wisdom of elders, but wisdom isn't just knowledge, it's knowledge in motion, it's experience that flows outward and uplifts others. That only happens when you stay engaged, when you choose each day to live as if there's still more to become. Somewhere along the way, society started selling this lie that aging means stepping aside. That's nonsense. Aging isn't an exit ramp, it's an evolution. You're not retiring from life. You're graduating into a new form of relevance. You're entering the phase where your value is no longer in how fast you move, but in how deeply you think, how generously you teach, and how gracefully you lead. So if you've slipped into that habit of shrinking away from life, wake up. If you've accepted the lie that your best is behind you, challenge it, because there is more ahead, but you have to decide to reach for it. No one else can reignite that spark for you. That's your job. That's your moment. And it begins with one honest question. Have I stopped moving because I'm tired? Or because I'm afraid to grow again? If the answer stings a little, that's okay. That sting is your spirit trying to remind you. It's still alive. It's still hungry. It's still ready to burn bright. You haven't missed your chance. You've just been on pause, and it's time to press play. Comfort is one of the most misunderstood concepts in life. For many, especially in later years, comfort becomes the ultimate goal, the destination after decades of sacrifice, struggle, and service. It's what we're told to strive for: financial comfort, physical comfort, emotional comfort. But here's the hard truth. The very thing we chase for peace often becomes the silent force of our decline. Comfort, when left unchecked, becomes a trap. It lulls us into stillness, and stillness, over time, begins to rot. The human being is not designed to stay still for too long, physically, mentally, or spiritually. Growth is our natural state. Just as nature pushes trees to grow upward and roots to grow downward, life calls on us to keep stretching. But comfort tells us the opposite. It says, you've done enough, take it easy, don't push too hard, don't reach too far. And if you listen long enough, you start believing it. You begin to avoid challenge. You start shrinking your efforts to match the energy you feel instead of the potential you still carry. There is nothing wrong with enjoying rest, but rest is not the same as retreat. Recovery is not the same as resignation. The problem arises when you start making comfort the standard instead of the reward. When comfort becomes your full-time environment, you stop challenging yourself. And when you stop challenging yourself, you stop growing. And when growth stops, something inside you, something essential, begins to shut down. Growth never feels comfortable in the moment. That's why it's so powerful. It demands energy, focus, and resilience. But it also delivers something comfort never can: expansion, purpose, aliveness, the sense that you're still becoming, not just existing. The truth is, everything meaningful in life involves a level of discomfort. Learning something new, starting a fresh routine, facing uncertainty, pushing your body. These are the very activities that build you. Without them, you're not resting. You're dissolving. Comfort is like a warm blanket that slowly turns into chains. At first, it feels deserved, earned, then it becomes familiar, then it becomes limiting, and finally, it becomes suffocating. You wake up one day and realize you haven't done anything that challenged you in months or years. You haven't taken a risk, stepped into the unknown, or pushed yourself towards something greater. You're no longer living, you're maintaining. This isn't about condemning peace or suggesting that chaos is better. It's about understanding that growth doesn't stop with age. In fact, the stakes for growth become even higher as you get older. Why? Because now, you're setting the example. You're showing others what it looks like to age with fire still in your heart. If they see you surrender to comfort, they'll think that's the natural end of the story. But it doesn't have to be. Your life can still be a story of becoming, no matter what chapter you're in. Comfort tells you to stay the same. Growth asks you to change. Comfort tells you not to risk embarrassment. Growth says it's okay to look foolish in the process of getting stronger. Comfort says you've done enough. Growth whispers, there's still more in you. And that whisper, that inner nudge isn't an illusion. It's the truth. You feel it because something inside knows you haven't reached your final version yet. Something deep within you understands that the moment you stop growing, you start dying. Think of the times in your life when you felt most alive. Were you comfortable, or were you challenged? Were you resting, or were you climbing, learning, building? Aliveness doesn't come from ease. It comes from movement, from challenge, from the pursuit of something just out of reach. And the beautiful part is that pursuit never has to end unless you end it. So here's the choice in front of you. Do you settle into the softness of routine, or do you shake yourself awake and ask, what can I push toward today? It doesn't have to be massive. Growth doesn't always come in loud, dramatic steps. Sometimes it's as simple as reading a new book, trying a new class, learning a new skill, mentoring someone, or picking up something you once loved and bringing it back to life. Comfort is tempting, but it's not fulfilling. Growth is hard, but it makes you feel alive, and in the end, that's all anyone truly wants, to feel alive, to wake up with a reason, to go to bed feeling spent, not from idleness, but from effort. The path is yours to choose, but remember this, comfort may preserve your body, but only growth can keep your spirit young. There is a misconception that has quietly taken root in society, one that suggests wisdom is the end of the road, the final stage of the journey. As if once you reach a certain level of experience, a certain age, or a certain title, your work is done. You've arrived, you know enough, you've seen enough, you've contributed enough, and now you're expected to simply settle into the identity of the wise elder, offering occasional advice from the sidelines while life moves on without you. But that isn't wisdom. That's stagnation wearing the mask of experience. True wisdom is not a resting point. It is not the moment you stop growing. It is the moment you start growing differently. It's not about doing less. It's about doing more intentionally, more thoughtfully, more impactfully. The presence of wisdom should never signal the absence of progress. If anything, wisdom is the fuel for deeper exploration. You've gained the insight. You've earned the perspective. Now the question becomes, what will you do with it? Many people confuse wisdom with stillness. They think that because they've lived through decades of life, they've reached the summit. They no longer need to seek, stretch, or strive. But even the tallest trees continue to grow, even after decades of standing tall. If nature doesn't stop evolving, why should you? Wisdom is not the end. It's a new beginning, a higher-level version of life where your energy is not scattered but focused, where your steps are not fast but intentional, where your time is not wasted but invested. It's easy to see why so many fall into the trap of stagnation after gaining wisdom. You've made mistakes and learned from them. You've seen patterns in people, in relationships, in decisions. You've started to recognize how the world works, and because you now see the bigger picture, it's tempting to pull back, to distance yourself, to retreat into the comfort of knowing instead of continuing the vulnerability of becoming. But no matter how much you know, there's always more to uncover, more to refine, more to offer. Wisdom isn't a trophy to be displayed, it's a tool to be used. It's the edge you now carry, and you are meant to carve something meaningful with it. When you stop moving because you think you know enough, you rob the world of what that wisdom can create. You rob yourself of the very energy that came from earning that wisdom in the first place. Because while knowledge can be stored, wisdom must be shared. And in the act of sharing, you are transformed again. One of the saddest things in life is watching people with tremendous wisdom become irrelevant, not because they lack value, but because they've decided their time to grow has passed. They stop contributing. They stop engaging. They believe their part in the story is over, but life doesn't end when you stop working. It doesn't end when the kids move out or when the world stops demanding your attention. Life ends when you choose to stop evolving. When you choose stagnation over expansion. Wisdom is powerful precisely because it comes from experience. And experience means you've been through struggle. You've endured pain. You've made it through seasons where quitting would have been easier. That history gives you strength, but it also gives you responsibility. The responsibility to live as an example, not just of survival, but of continued growth, of curiosity, of presence. You don't just carry stories, you carry momentum. You have the ability to inspire simply by the way you live your life, not by quoting the past, but by shaping the present, by walking into new challenges with the grace of someone who has been there before. And when others see you doing that, especially younger people, it changes their view of aging. It shifts their perspective from decline to evolution. They stop fearing age and start respecting it. You have that power. But only if you stop seeing wisdom as the final destination and start seeing it as the launch. And it really is. There is more to learn. There are deeper parts of yourself to uncover. There are people who need your insight, but also your example. Show them that wisdom is not a rocking chair, it's a weapon, a tool, a flame. Stagnation is not inevitable, it's a choice, just like growth is a choice. And if you've made it this far in life, you already know how to make hard choices. So make one more, choose to keep moving, not because you have to, but because wisdom, real wisdom, demands movement, demands action, demands that you become more not less, with time. There's a phrase that sounds so harmless, so innocent, that most people don't even question it. In fact, it's often said with pride, as if it marks a successful life well lived. I've done enough. On the surface, it seems like a badge of honor. It suggests a person has worked hard, contributed, and earned the right to rest. But underneath that phrase lies one of the most dangerous beliefs a person can adopt, because it signals the end of forward motion. And the moment you decide you've done enough, you start pulling yourself out of the game of life. This mindset is a trap, especially for seniors. It whispers to you that it's okay to slow down, to withdraw, to let go of your drive. After all, you've spent decades pushing, striving, and building. You've raised families, built careers, made sacrifices. So, what's wrong with wanting to stop? The problem isn't in resting or taking breaks. The problem is in believing that your role in life is over, that your value is tied only to what you did before, not what you can still do now. I've done enough creates a dangerous illusion, that your best work is behind you, that your voice no longer matters, that your wisdom has no new audience. But life is never about reaching a finish line where you simply sit back and stop becoming. Life doesn't ask for one great act followed by silence. It calls us over and over again to continue evolving, to move into new forms of contribution, to pass the torch, yes, but not to walk away from the fire altogether. One of the greatest tragedies is how many people, especially later in life, slowly disappear from the world, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They stop learning, they stop creating, they stop initiating, they tell themselves they've done enough, but what they don't realize is that their story still matters, their energy still matters, their influence could still change lives, but only if they choose to stay in motion. This trap convinces people to reduce their identity to past accomplishments, to live in memory rather than in mission. But what made you valuable before wasn't just your work. It was your effort, your presence, your engagement. That's what others looked up to. That's what made you impactful, and that same force still lives inside you now. You don't stop being relevant because you turned a certain age. You stop being relevant because you start telling yourself your time is done. We live in a world that's obsessed with youth, and this adds fuel to the fire. The media tells you to step aside. Culture tells you to retire from contribution. But wisdom, experience, and maturity are not limitations. They are strengths. The world needs your presence, your perspective, your calm in the storm. But it won't ask for it loudly. That's why you have to decide to show up, again and again. Some of the most powerful contributions you will ever make may come after you've done what you thought was enough. Maybe it's a conversation that shifts someone's life direction. Maybe it's a book you write, a lesson you teach, a habit you model. Maybe it's simply the way you live, with integrity, with courage, with curiosity, that gives others permission to do the same. These things cannot be measured the way careers or accomplishments are measured, but they are just as important, sometimes more. The truth is, you were not meant to plateau, you were meant to evolve. The idea that you've already offered the best of yourself is an illusion. Because as long as you're breathing, you are still shaping others. You are still influencing the atmosphere around you. And every time you say, "I've done enough," you risk cutting off the most meaningful part of your legacy, the part where you live with your wisdom, not just talk about it. What if your greatest chapter hasn't been written yet? What if the moment you thought was your end was actually your beginning in a new form? That's not a fantasy. It's a possibility. But only if you stop telling yourself you've done enough. Rest when you need to. Reflect on your past with pride. But don't retire your soul. Don't retreat from growth. Because the second you do, you stop being an example of what's possible and start becoming a warning of what happens when people let go too soon. The trap of "I've done enough" isn't about physical effort. It's about spiritual surrender. And if you can resist that trap, if you can keep showing up with curiosity, courage, and contribution, then you'll discover something extraordinary, that your most powerful days might still be ahead of you. There's a belief that creeps into the mind slowly as the years go by, a belief that tells you aging is the enemy, that getting older means decline, that it brings limitation, weakness, irrelevance. This belief isn't always spoken aloud, but it seeps into your habits, your posture, your decisions. You begin to avoid new things. You pull back from taking risks. You stop stretching, physically, mentally, emotionally, not because you have to, but because you assume age has taken those options off the table. But the truth is far more empowering. Age is not your enemy. The real enemy is inactivity. Getting older doesn't automatically mean you lose your vitality, your curiosity, your strength. What causes that loss is a lack of motion. The decision to stop using the muscles, both physical and mental, that kept you vibrant for so many years. The decline we often blame on age is, in many cases, simply the result of no longer challenging ourselves. Muscles weaken when they're not used. So does the brain. So does your sense of purpose. So does your spirit. And this isn't just about exercise, though physical activity is undeniably powerful. It's about movement in all its forms. It's about engaging with life, continuing to learn, taking part in conversations that matter, asking questions, contributing to your community, your family, your circle. When you stop moving in these ways, you don't just become less active, you begin to shrink. Your world narrows, your sense of possibility contracts, and once that happens, you start to believe the lie that aging has defeated you. But look around. There are people in their 70s, 80s, even 90s doing incredible things. Writing books, starting projects, mentoring the next generation, traveling, learning new instruments, practicing martial arts. Why? Because they refused to equate age with expiration. They chose activity over apathy. They understood that a calendar doesn't define you. Your choices do. They didn't wait for energy to come before moving. They moved, and energy came because of it. This is a message not just for seniors, but for everyone. As long as you are alive, there is something within you that wants to grow. Something that wants to move. That doesn't vanish because of age. It just gets buried under routine, comfort, or fear. The danger is not in growing older. The danger is in stopping the pursuit of goals, stopping the joy of discovery, stopping the work of refining who you are. We often make the mistake of thinking activity belongs to the young, that drive, ambition, and curiosity are tied to youth, but that's not true. In fact, the most meaningful kind of activity, the one that's grounded in purpose and wisdom, comes with age. When you're young, you often move without knowing why, but as you grow, you gain clarity. You understand the value of each effort. You see how your presence, your action, can ripple into others' lives. Choosing inactivity, on the other hand, is often disguised as rest. But real rest is temporary. It's a pause to regain strength, not an exit from engagement. Inactivity, when it becomes a lifestyle, slowly eats away at your spark. It tells your body there's no reason to stay strong. It tells your mind there's no reason to stay sharp. It tells your heart there's no reason to keep opening up. And so you fade, not because you aged, but because you disengaged. The great news is that you can choose differently. You can decide today to move again, to stretch into unfamiliar territory, to challenge yourself in small, consistent ways. You can commit to being a beginner at something. You can pick up old passions. You can walk into spaces you've avoided. You can mentor, teach, share, build, lead. It doesn't matter how slow it feels. What matters is that you're active, that you're engaged, that you're still in the game. You owe it to yourself to resist the myth that your age has disqualified you. The only thing that disqualifies you is not showing up, not trying, not participating, and if you still have breath in your lungs, you still have the power to participate. So move in whatever way you can, walk with purpose, speak with intention, think deeply. Create boldly. Age will keep coming, that's out of your control, but how you meet it, how you dance with it, how you live with it, that is entirely yours to shape. Don't surrender to inactivity. It is the quiet thief of life. Stay awake, stay in motion, stay alive in every way that counts, because the moment you stop moving, you start fading. But the moment you decide to act again, at any age, you prove to yourself and to the world that growth never ends. There's a common misunderstanding about legacy. People often speak of it as something that happens after they're gone, something others reflect on when you've exited the world. It's treated like a statue built in your absence, a collection of memories sealed in time. But that's not what legacy really is. Legacy isn't something you leave behind. It's something you build, actively, deliberately, daily. It is not a product of your final moments, but of your current ones. And every choice you make, especially in the latter stages of life, is a brick added to the structure of your legacy. The danger is in thinking that legacy is tied to the past, that what you've already done is all that counts. Many seniors fall into the habit of looking backwards, believing their legacy has already been written in full. They talk about what they used to do, who they used to be, the impact they used to have. But here's the truth. If you're still here, your legacy is still in progress. The pages are still being written, and what you do now, how you carry yourself, how you treat others, how you rise each day, can shape that legacy just as powerfully, if not more, than anything you did in your youth. The most meaningful legacies are not measured in wealth, fame, or awards. They're measured in example, in how you lived, in how you made people feel, in the values you stood for. They're reflected in the strength you showed in times of struggle, the grace you brought to moments of change, the love and presence you extended to others when you could have turned inward. Those things are not just memories. They become models for others to follow. And models are built through daily action, not distant reflection. That's why it's so important not to fall into the trap of thinking your work is done, because every interaction you have now, every conversation, every smile, every act of kindness, every decision to stay engaged becomes part of your legacy. You are still showing people how to live, especially the younger generation. They're watching, they're learning what aging looks like, what resilience looks like, what purpose looks like when things slow down, when the spotlight fades, when the audience gets quieter. And if you give up now, if you disconnect, if you stop growing, if you retreat into comfort and complain that the world is moving on without you, you're teaching them that life ends before it actually does. You're sending the message that meaning and purpose are only for the young. But if you keep going, if you stay active, curious, generous, you show them a different way. You show them that legacy isn't a single act. It's a lifestyle. The smallest things you do now may one day become the most remembered. A few thoughtful words to a struggling young person, the way you get up each day with discipline, the joy you bring into a room, the way you treat people with dignity, even when no one's watching. These things don't require a stage or a headline. They require heart, they require presence, and they echo far beyond what you can imagine. Legacy doesn't require grandeur. It requires consistency, and the beauty of that is you don't need to achieve something new to build it. You just need to show up as the best version of yourself, again and again. With humility, with effort, with purpose. You've already been through so much. That wisdom is your power. Now use it, not to reminisce, but to shape. Use it to guide others, to comfort, to uplift, to correct, to challenge, to inspire, and most of all, understand this. Legacy is not some abstract concept you'll only understand when you're gone. It's happening now. People are forming opinions, learning lessons, making decisions based on who you are and how you live. The question is not, will I leave a legacy? You already are. The real question is, what kind of legacy will I continue to build today, tomorrow, and every day after? So don't slow down because you think your time is up. Your time is now. Every moment you are alive is another chance to add something meaningful to the story of your life. Choose to write it boldly. Let people remember you not only for what you did once, but for how you kept doing, even when you didn't have to. Let your final chapters be as powerful, as intentional, as inspired as any you've ever written. Because in the end, legacy isn't what you leave, it's what you live. So I'm begging you, don't stop living just because you've stopped working. Don't stop growing just because the world says you've done enough. You have more to give, more to learn, more to become. Do not go gently into that quiet chair. Rise again, not for us, but for the powerful, unstoppable version of yourself that still waits to be born.